Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read T-Pass, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Terran for Terror, written by _sky__. Deep inside a large asteroid, our hive was hibernating, slowly traveling through the vast expanse of the interstellar space directly at our target. It took time to accomplish such a hazardous endeavor, but we had evolved to do so. Over countless generations, our instincts were finely tuned to the point that mistakes were out of the equation. We were a perfect, world-conquering organism. Our biologically tailored solar sails encompassed our mother asteroid, moved us forward. Here it often got damaged, but we always regenerated. Our goal: to consume, to spread, to grow, to satisfy our hunger. Months after entering the system, we knew this was a turning point for our hive. Our senses now fully set on the third planet from the star. We ourselves slowly waking from the thousands upon thousands of years of slumber. Never before had we witnessed such a rich prize, littered with precious biomass, enough to easily construct billions of hives and launch them across the galaxy. Gradually, our mother asteroid is redirected towards our target. The giant biological sheets were unfurled, reflecting the light in the sun and slowly aligning our trajectory with that of the planet. The closer we got, the stronger our hunger, most of the hive now fully awake. Instinctively, we are rushing for the most fertile part of the planet, an area with an obviously dense plant life, usually easy to consume and digest with likely no significant opposition by native apex predators, the Amazon rainforest. That was our hive's reasoning. Planets which offer an abundance of biomass were always, without exception, crawling with weak life forms, a natural byproduct of evolving on a garden world where evolution never pushed the life to the extreme, unlike the void of space, where scarce resources were an omnipresent reality. Our hunger, now reaching climax as violent and hellish atmospheric entry awakes something primal in our hyper-tuned instincts. We are plowing through the atmosphere, the ground ever closer. The mother asteroid is falling apart bit by bit, as it is supposed to do. Elaborate biological parachutes slow our descent. Thus, we will be able to spread the elements of our hive throughout the largest fertile area, as to consume it faster. The swarm in the area and its biomass, few parts of the mother asteroid did slam into the surface, unleashing minimal destruction, nothing out of the ordinary. Our hive has landed. To consume is to survive. Instantly, we see ourselves surrounded by gigantic elements made of biomass, likes of which our hive have never recorded. But luckily, they are a completely unmovable form of life, relying on photosynthesis to thrive, extremely similar to many plants that we've seen. Yet, we never expected to find such large ones on the planet with this level of gravity. Their outer crust, no match for our sharp tentacles. They stand no chance as we start adapting and consuming them in all directions. We stay on alert, sending scouts into the search for the apex predators of this world. Yet nothing we face seems to be our match. Few larger reptiles prove individually strong, but can't possibly oppose our hive intellect. Dissecting one sample after another and examining their molecular structure, we find no signs of extreme biological organs necessary for the development of any known form of hive mind, only some intricate carbon-based chemistry. Other biological threats in the form of countless viruses and bacteria had found their way into our collective, contaminating individual drones, yet failing to overpower our adaptability to such incursions. Still, they indeed presented an extreme threat. Increasing the amount of hive mind's intellect was derailed by combating microbiology of its biomass-rich world. This, in turn, seriously slowed down our rate of consumption of surrounding resources for the first few days. Surprisingly, it soon turned into an unexpected advantage. By observing the abundant examples of life around us, the hive discovered new ways to consume, new ways to construct the subsequent generation of drones and warrior forms, the new applications of chemistry which were to optimize our collective. After that, our growth seemed unstoppable. All unmovable life forms were left to our mercy, while others which could fly, run, or swim tried to escape. We cared little for the order in which we consumed them. We rampaged through the area, nothing there to oppose our hunger. The only thing left was to grow, to consume. Due to such docile environment, our hive slowed the production of the warrior forms, as there seemed to be no need for them. our regular drones being more than capable of taking on anything they'd face. Yet the situation soon switched on us. The forward scouts quickly discovered what only could be described as a product of intellect, obvious signs of architecture which seemed to be omnipresent in some areas, coupled with organized agriculture and domesticated animals, something we understood in theory, but never really had a chance to conduct ourselves in the unforgiving emptiness of space. All that indicating only one possible solution: an intelligent species was inhabiting this planet. The sudden shock spread throughout the entire hive, even more so when we concluded the species in question was more based on a function of a single drone, unlike our truly mentally connected collective. Their architecture was awe-inspiring, a combination of tall structures and underground facilities all over the place. In truth, we ourselves were able to build higher and far more massive constructs, but only in the emptiness of space, where gravity wasn't a factor. Here on this planet, we could just dig deep, very deep indeed. What little we found about them initially did indicate that they had rigid hierarchy and some elements of hive mentality. To us, that explained most of their intelligence. But they were different. Unlike us, their minds were not connected. Instead, they used rather primitive methods of communication. And the worst thing was that they were everywhere around us. Vast areas of lands were completely under their control. Some were sparsely populated, others littered with dense populations. To make it worse, many members of their species moved all around, and avoiding detection by them was no small task. Luckily, they seemed unaware and ignorant of our presence, for a time being, what in turn gave us a crucial opportunity to be the first ones to strike. Carefully, we started building our numbers, organizing our deployment around the most heavily inhabited areas, and avoiding any contact possible until the odds were in our favor. The seriousness of the situation was such that we felt reluctant to even try and capture a few of their drones. After all, if they had some form of communication by which they could broadcast the information far faster than their primitive biology indicated, we would face an organized attack. Reasons for such caution was that the civilization we observed had complexity orders of magnitude above the ones that we'd expect out of the simple biology. The height of the buildings, the arrays of tunnels and organized movements of their drones and resources was unprecedented. Numbers of individuals in more densely populated areas often reached millions. The logical conclusion was that this species rules the planet, and its total population easily numbers in many billions, likely even far more, depending on the conditions of the rest of the planet. Yet they were not truly organized like us, not truly united. We even saw an individual of the same species fighting amongst themselves in the crudest manner, an expected side effect of the lack of a natural hive mind. The fact that they were able to function at all was unexplainable. Nevertheless, there was no doubt about their intelligence, ability to bend the nature to their will, modifying their environment, constructing shelters or bridges, etc. However, their simple biology played straight to our advantage. Their eyesight, sense of echobiological electrolocation, or magnetic-based orientation were practically non-existent when compared to ours, allowing our scouts to observe them with ease, extracting large amounts of data on our opposition. Instead of precise echobiological electrical locators, they had evolved hearing organs, which relied on vibrations of gases in their atmosphere to collect information on their surroundings, something space-based life like ours truly did not require. The hearing was a waste of sensory organs in every sense, absolutely inferior. Our locators worked perfectly regardless of obstacles or mediums by which information propagated, detecting minute electrical signals every life form emitted. While theirs was useless in the water, ours had no such problems, and offered us significantly longer range. It was also extremely obvious our warrior forms were superior in every regard. Few times their body mass, dozens of razor-sharp tentacles, rapidly faster and much more agile, and absolutely incomparable in terms of fighting reflexes, reaction time, etc. The hive mind concluded most of the enemy drones would not stand a chance. Still, it did seem the enemy had a type of warrior caste of its own. Yet, biologically speaking, there was quite a difference between their native warrior form and their regular drones. They were on average bigger and taller, but that was mostly it. What was somewhat unexpected, yet was seen as welcome news. Not prepared to risk our survival without a good of understanding the enemy, as we could have, we delayed the attack as long as realistically possible. fully aware that once we strike, the element of surprise would no longer be on our side, and the enemy, which possessed the obvious intellect, would practically instantly reorganize and strike back. At least such was our experience when fighting other hives. By the time we felt confident to strike, our numbers had grown so much that it was becoming a problem to hide all of our warrior forms. The biggest advantage is that they could effectively hibernate and wait in place without the need to bring them biomass for consumption or any other form of supply. Hive mind reasoned that we would have a significant advantage while fighting in the area filled with dense plant-based life forms, or in areas where the soil would be easy to dig through. However, once the fighting spills into their heavily populated areas, the sheer number of defensible choke points we would face as a direct consequence of their native architecture would likely not bode well for us, as our larger warrior forms would likely find it hard to maneuver and swarm the opposition inside the architectural constructs. Considering we never fought an enemy like this before also made us reconsider many aspects and strategies previously somewhat foreign to us. Not just muscle structure of our warrior forms, or strength and weight ratio of their exoskeleton, length of their tentacles, nor biological weaponry that they would be equipped with. The war on this scale required logistical preparations of the greatest scope, which was somewhat ironically quite simplified by the sheer amount of resources available to us. Thus, we decided it would be a fluid war of attrition. We would strike fast and decisively, cutting them off from their larger sources of biomass they obviously needed to survive, destroying it or consuming it ourselves, to siege their densely populated areas and dig around it, forcing the natives to starve, or launch what would be suicidal attacks against us, all while our numbers would grow exponentially, as we would no longer have to hide our presence, meaning that relatively quickly we could deal with the fortifications by sheer weight of numbers. But we knew that was not enough. The significant flaw in our plan was that there were vast areas of the planet to which we currently had no real access to, meaning that every siege we engaged ourselves into had to be run rather quickly before any enemy reinforcements could arrive. We would have to advance without stopping. To stand a chance to achieving this meant that we absolutely had to destroy most of, or not all, stockpiles of biomass which those densely populated areas had stored for future consumption. After all, any siege is pointless if the enemy has enough biomass to last them months. Simple solution our hive mind came up with was to dig deep enough to seriously compromise the foundations of the architectural marvels, to collapse them completely if possible, designing specific worker drones for this task. That was when we believed that we were ready. Gradually, our hibernating warrior forms have woken from their short slumber, their hunger making them even more lethal. As the shadow of the night had covered our side of the planet's surface, we rushed forward, the perfection of our organization's sheer contrast to the chaos which befell the enemy. If even a single of our drones was killed or captured, our entire hive mind would instantly be alerted, even if not knowing what exactly happened. But it was not so with our enemy. Surprisingly, the first member of their species to come into our tentacles was already lying dead when we found it. A single body surrounded by a colorful plant life. We dismembered it to study it as fast as possible. Now it was all or nothing for us, a war to the extermination. It was only then that we found out for sure that their individual drones was not only inferior physically, but also mentally. Its nervous system highly lacking in many of the senses, not to mention the complete absence of anything resembling neural cortex for advanced tactical reasoning. Admittedly, they had well-developed muscle fibers and extremely exquisite sense of smell thoroughly connected to their nervous system. Again, in space, the sense of smell is practically useless. Our bioelectrical locators were simply far more efficient and information-dense. Their body was partially hard to cut through, but that was extremely vulnerable around ligaments. Even more beneficial to us was the realization that their eyesight had dismal spectra of sensitivity, the one against which we could easily camouflage and be practically invisible to them. From it, we now fully confirmed what we had already assumed. In one-to-one fight, the natives stood no chance. Our warrior forms were bigger, stronger, faster, and highly more intelligent. Our tentacles could rip apart their extremities with ease. The only technical way the enemy could hurt us was with its jaws, which, besides strong bite, were filled with extremely damaging acid. Yet, it seemed like the ridiculous notion that they would be able to do so before being ripped apart. Encouraged by this new information, we plowed forward, with effectiveness of natives have never seen before. Most of them, in this area of low population density, were rolled over before they had a chance to raise alarms. Stealth was not something foreign to the hive mind, which fought others like itself, the others, which were able to instantly alert every single drone if they figured that they were under attack. Our sudden overwhelming success made us reckless, our superiority ignorant to what we were facing. When first of our warrior forms suddenly fell, their nervous system completely unresponsive, the hive mind disregarded it as accidental loss. As coordinating such large swarms simultaneously did pose a level of potentially lethal neural stress that we did not experience previously. But more and more of our warrior forms were detected unresponsive or severely damaged without being engaged in close combat. Something was happening, and we were failing to understand why. Still, we pushed on, our weight of numbers simply unstoppable. By the dawn, dozens upon dozens of millions of natives were either killed or consumed, the numbers only growing. Their awe-inspiring pieces of architecture now collapsing as our drones compromised their foundations. The strength of our attack was such that the enemy still seemed unable to organize an effective defense. As the second night of the fighting fell upon us, we didn't slow down for a bit. Rather, we rushed in their once densely populated areas, which were now nothing more than crumbling structures of once fanciful architecture. There, we expected them to put up a grisly defense, to try to hold on. It did not happen. By the next dawn, the entire front was silent. Their main hubs, for which we feared might withstand our push for weeks, have all fell in less than 2 days. The largest of them all, the ones close to the large bodies of water, the ones which we saw as the main hubs of their civilization, were arguably the easiest to take, as our warrior forms could swim rather fast and with ease. Yet something was off, way off, and our hive has felt it. Majority of losses we suffered during these first 2 days occurred under circumstances which made no sense. Time and time again, many of our perfectly functioning warrior forms would just collapse or sustain severe damage without being in range of enemy jaws or extremities. Indeed, only a dismal small amount of our drones was ever killed in close-quarter combat, often only when attacking the areas where they held their youngest drones. For some reasons, those areas were always the most protected. There, the enemy literally seemed willing to waste any amount of bodies to hold us off, even if it was just for a second. Probably because their young drones were the easiest to dismember and digest, what in turn would grow our numbers even higher. That was something we could understand. Unfortunately, the intellect of our hive struggled to come with a solution as to why we were losing such large numbers of warrior forms from seemingly nowhere. Luckily, those losses were still way below our replenishment levels. However, it was a cause for alarm, as the only solution was that either they were getting infected by some unknown pathogen which by chance preferred to strike our nerve centers, or the enemy drones possessed some form of biological weaponry which enabled them to retaliate with stealth from range way above the ones their extremities would suggest. We dissected countless enemy drones, observing their internal biology in even greater detail, thinking we might be facing a specific type of warrior caste. Yet we found no such biological mechanism, regardless of stunning diversity amongst the bodies gathered over the large area. Expectedly so. Then, after painstakingly examining every detail of the corpses of our fallen warrior forms, countless pieces of different shaped foreign bodies were found inside of them. The foreign bodies in question were something strange, a biology completely unbeknownst to us, something the hive never faced before. We were stunned. Our internal biology was able to detect even the infection of these singular microbes, yet somehow failed to act against or even sense this new threat. Unlike countless viruses or bacteria, this obviously highly infective life form functioned in ways unbeknownst to us. The mechanisms by which it was able to infect so many of our warrior forms, even less so. For the first time ever, our hive mind, which had access to countless senses of billions upon billions of drones, was somehow both blind and deaf when facing this new danger. Yet the final conclusion was inescapable. The unknown pathogen was annihilating us by the rate of innumerably higher than the dominant species of this planet. More detailed observation discovered the pathogen in question often prefers to infect softer body parts, like tentacles, or inner organs where it causes severe damage, but does far less so to the exoskeleton. We had to find a way to contain it before it fully spread. Thus, consuming our fallen and their biomass was no longer an option, something which we knew would temporarily devastate our growth numbers. Still, we had plenty of other sources to draw biomass from, and such drastic measures would only need to be implemented until we developed an immune system capable of dealing with it. For now, we were only able to urgently re-evolve our biology so that it was able to detect when the foreign body enters the organism of any warrior form, confident that the full working immune system would be developed in a matter of weeks, at worst. Following days, the intensity of our attacks rose significantly, tactically deciding to send any infected warrior forms into immediate suicidal attacks, as to more effectively contain the outbreak, even if the infection was only detected inside of a single tentacle. Our highest preferred method is to force the drones to violently quickly remutate their body chemistry into a highly volatile substance which would detonate on the neural command. Somewhat problematically, a number of warrior forms would die before the infection could even be effectively detected, while many others would suffer significant neural damage mere moments after noticing the said pathogen. Yet through the experimentation, we would be able to significantly delay the otherwise horrifyingly stunning progress of the disease in the individual drones by thickening the exoskeleton around the main nerve center. By the end of the week, we held firm control over the vast expanse of fertile land, our numbers still slowly growing regardless of the most deadly pathogen our hive had ever witnessed. Worryingly, though, we were not a step closer to the evolving and effective immune system. Nothing we tried worked, and the situation only grew worse. Then, due to the constant effort to understand the said pathogen, we were unexpectedly able to locate some of it in the outside body parts of our enemies. It was as if they were purposely carrying it so they could infect us. Yet it wasn't in a deformed state that we usually saw it inside our warrior forms' bodies. We found in enemy drones it was shaped differently, somehow symmetrically. We could not understand its biological composition yet. It was too alien, and we struggled as never before. Yet all was not lost. We were still advancing on every front, swarming the enemy. Our warrior forms too superior, too stealthy to lose. Opposition population hubs now fully overrun, almost no survivors left. Until that happened. It was as if we were re-entering the atmosphere, unprotected by thick layers of mother asteroid. The heat from above consumed us in our millions every second. Horror unseen, unwitnessed in our hive's history. It was as if a swarm of asteroids had crushed upon us. Simultaneously, countless drones and warrior forms were burnt to ashes. Rich and large areas of biomass under our control suddenly turned non-existent. Many tried to escape the heat, to survive it, yet was nigh impossible. It had us surrounded, no time to react, not a single drone could adapt. Rapidly, the chaos of that horror spread, and the great heat consumed the one nest after the other. A small percentage of us survived, buried deep beneath the ground. In less than a day, our numbers were depleted, survivors and the biomass too sparse to reliably recover in any meaningful time, utterly crushed by the force unlike any we understood. The only course of action left was to hide, to avoid detection as much as possible. We knew not how our enemy bested us, but the heat event was too sudden, too destructive to be a coincidence. They had retaliated fully. We had underestimated their individual intelligence, that was for sure. We had to hide, we had to try something, but it was too late. Another heat could consume us at every moment. We had to evacuate. We had to run away from this hellscape. But how? Preparing the volcanic eruption, which could launch carved-out Mother Asteroid into orbit without frying us, usually took thousands of years. We were trapped. The human side of the story. "Sir, you are one of the leading biologists in your field," the young female reporter spoke in a truly respectful tone to the man in front of her. "And you have been the first to classify this truly alien life form. The public is speechless. Everyone has been shocked by the events of the last few days." "Indeed, so was I," the man spoke with a surprisingly calm voice. "It all happened so fast, there was too little time to react effectively." "How did you even find yourself there, in the midst of all of it?" The curiosity fully emanating from her voice. "Well," the man spoke, "I was on a scientific expedition to the rainforests of Brazil, myself being an expert of mycology, a branch of entomology focusing on the study of ants. That is why I was there in the first place. You'll hardly find a greater array of such insects anywhere else." The younger reporter simply nodded, urging the scientist to continue. "So there I was, minding my own project, observing one amazing ant colony when I saw a comet fly over the horizon. I had no idea how close it actually struck, nor was I aware of what I'd just witnessed. Of course, the reporter spoke in a rather friendly tone. I bet nobody could have guessed there were alien life forms present. My thought exactly, answered the scientist. Thus I stayed where I was studying this amazing ant colony. I'm not an astrophysicist or a geologist, after all. Next few days were calm and peaceful most of the time. It was scorching hot, true, and there had been no rainfall in the last 2 weeks. What is unusual for the rainforest, mind you. Yet nothing else was out of the ordinary. What happened next? How did you witness what is now literally called the first contact? The reporter was becoming a little impatient to hear the direct, more personal answer. Well, it just happened. I was observing the ant colony, taking the video footage, as I was recording their behavior, when literally out of nowhere the swarm of small tentacle little bugs rushed over the ant colony. I was stunned. The entire structure of the colony collapsed. It was a slaughter, basically. They invaded them without mercy. The scientist went on gesticulating, describing how shocking all of it was, while the picture of an alien bug was on the screen for all the viewers to see. Compared to the ants, it was somewhat larger. Its body consisted of a dozen or so tentacles, with central structure protected by an exoskeleton. The scientist continued. At first, I have naturally thought that they were some sort of undiscovered insect life form. It was only minutes later, after I sampled their DNA, as I had state-of-the-art equipment with me, that I found the results did not make any sense, that it was alien in origin. I immediately notified my colleagues, and the rest is history. You say they have attacked an ant colony, even collapsed it. You make it sound like some warfare. The scientist nodded. Indeed. The primitive war was raging all over the rainforest. Many ant colonies, which were remotely observed by stationary cameras, were confirmed to have been attacked simultaneously. It was a well-coordinated attack, I tell you. These alien life forms are vicious, consuming anything in their way. Deeper in the forest, they were even seen consuming entire trees and stretches of jungle, spreading rapidly. Of course, we've seen many footages of such events, but could you classify as to why did they attack the ants specifically? It was as if they were focused solely on them. The scientist was slow to answer at first. I do not yet have significant evidence, but I assume they saw them as a threat. This new tentacle bugs, as the public named them, seem to exhibit an extraordinary level of intelligence. Expectedly, they've seen the ants as opposition. After all, the ants themselves exhibit many aspects of intelligence, like agriculture, domestication of animals, resource management, and even civil construction. Many people are not aware of it. They see the ants as little more than a stupid bug. I would advise them to Google it more. However, this tentacle bug did not underestimate them. You claim that they are intelligent alien life form? Well, to some degree, surely. I mean, just look at their tactical brilliance. The level of coordination in attacking ant colonies all over the rainforest was stunning. Plus, they quickly stopped consuming the bodies of their fallen once the fungal epidemic swept over their population. Fungal epidemic? Indeed, answered the scientist. You see, life forms like fungi are unlike viruses or bacteria. The fungi-like biology is truly unlikely, dare I say unable, to evolve or survive in a void of space. Thus, tentacle bug's immune system was not able to cope with it. They never faced anything similar. And let me tell you, they have the most astonishing immune systems ever seen. We'll have to do a lot of research on it. But how did they get infected? The type of fungi in question is easy to find on the exoskeleton of ants, but it is mostly harmless to them. Yet the soft tissue parts of the tentacle bugs are like the feast for it. It is unbelievable how fast it spreads over their bodies. The field of epidemiology will have a lot to observe there. Also, evolutionary biologists will find a treasure trove of research in observing how the tentacle bugs evolved up their exoskeleton to protect themselves, as the fungi were not able to consume their exoskeleton as easily. It's quite amazing that you were able to observe all of it. Truth be told, I was not alone. Many biology experts in my expedition, combined with the state-of-the-art research equipment, were crucial in this. So, will this horrific forest fire hamper your research efforts? Sadly so, answered the scientist. The unprecedented level and size of this recent fire is in large part due to the highly flammable waste products produced by the tentacle bugs. They had littered the floor of the forest with it. However, in our oxygen-rich atmosphere, this is highly dangerous. I'm not sure if their population will recover, but we will continue to study them as much as possible. So, their excrement is highly combustible? The young reporter seemed rather surprised and uncomfortable to talk about it. Absolutely. It's basically refined magnesium mixed with the sulfur and traces of a dozen other elements. Horrific stuff. though you might get more details from some of the colleagues who are actual chemists, and even they were surprised. Understandably, said the reporter. I'm glad that you found time for this interview. Me too, replied the scientist. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.